Today I'd like to share with you part 2 of my recent interview with Dr. William Davis, MD, the New York Times best-selling author of the Wheat Belly series of books and my personal favorite, Super Gut, where Dr. Davis taught us how to make the L-Reuteri super-cultured dairy. Hi, sweet friends. If we're meeting for the first time, I'm Mary, author of the Modern Pioneer Cookbook and now the Modern Pioneer Pantry, and I'd like to welcome you to my kitchen. Well, you know, that's fascinating what you said when they were doing the studies with the initial rat and the coat of the fur became thicker. I will tell you that back in 2020, with that virus that was just plaguing all of us, and I was able to avoid that. But then at the very end of 2021, I got sick with that. And my hair really thinned. You heard a lot of people talking about that. And when I eventually discovered you, started making L-Reuteri, I noticed that my hair improved. And places where I had like thin little bald spots almost, it started to grow back. And now I have like 3 or 4 inches of new hair. It looks a little funny because I've got like all these little spurts coming out, but I'm so happy for it. And something that I find fascinating when you have taught us how to make L-Reuteri is that you recommend using half and half. And I really like that you tell us, not to be afraid of good fats, because fats have been so maligned, the good fats. And then we've, spent years eating all of these seed oils that have been no good for us. And people now are coming back to wanting to eat the good fats. And so there's nothing as luscious as L-Reuteri made with half and half. And it's just a delicious cultured dairy of all of the cultured dairies, under the umbrella, whether it's yogurt, the traditional actual yogurt, or kefir, depending on how people say it. There's something very special about the texture and the taste of L-Reuteri. And something that many people have been very interested in is, I know you started making this with a different brand of L-Reuteri tablets that we would crush and mix in with the half and half and some inulin. But now you've created this MyReuteri. And I would love to hear your thoughts on how you came to create this and the success that you've had in making your own L-Reuteri cultured dairy using this.
Mary, when we choose a microbe, we screen it for all the necessary characteristics. So in this case, we want to make sure the strain, because there are differences among strains, not always, but sometimes. In this case, we wanted a Reuteri that colonized the small intestine. That's part of the magic here, Mary. Most microbes, probiotic species, colonize the colon. But Reuteri colonized the entire 24 feet of small intestine and the colon. And by the way, the mouth also, and the vagina, and many other places. So it's a very unique organism. Now, when it takes up residence in small intestine, it also produces what are called bacteriocins. These are natural antibiotics that kill invading fecal microbe. That sounds weird, but half the U.S. population, Mary, half the U.S. population has, for a variety of reasons, like exposure to antibiotics and other things, have allowed the overproliferation of fecal microbe, E. coli, Salmonella, Campylobacter, Pseudomonas, to overpopulate in the colon and then ascend into the 24 feet of small intestine, small intestinal bacterial over. We say SIBO, S-I-B-O.
Yes.
Well, I think that, so Reuteri, incredibly, Mary, has been lost by nearly everybody. It's ubiquitous in wild mammals. So if we were to examine the poop of a deer or a moose or a raccoon, they all have Reuteri. If we examine the stool of hunter-gatherer populations, like the Yanomami in the Brazilian rainforest, or inhabitants of the highlands of New Guinea, or the savanna tribes of Africa, they all have Reuteri. We've lost it because it's very susceptible to common antibiotics. And so restoring this microbe yields all these huge outsized effects. And by making yogurt, you're kind of stacking the odds in favor of having a big biological effect. If you have trillions of microbes, 50% of the population has this. I think it's worse than that, to be honest. But if half the population has the invasion of fecal microbes in the small intestine, trillions of them, how do you overpower them? Well, taking a probiotic ain't going to do it. Those numbers are so small, and most of those species in commercial probiotics don't take up residence in the small intestine and don't produce bacteriocins. So I choose strains of Reuteri that have all the characteristics we want. We've studied in animals, we've studied in humans, we're doing more studies with it. And one of the things we're trying to do long-term, Mary, is trying to see if we can improve on the effects. There's about 200 strains of Reuteri. We're not the pharmaceutical industry. We don't have billions of dollars from ripping people off. We don't do that, right? So we have a few $100,000 for every clinical study. It's a little bit rough to do that, but we do it. And we're having a new study about to start in a few weeks. Because one of the things I'm exploring also is we did our first clinical trial, small trial, 25 ladies. And I asked them, don't change your diet, don't change your exercise program, just get the Reuteri. And I threw in some other things. This was a skin trial, Mary, looking at skin. So to stack the odds in favor of a positive response, the ladies took Reuteri, 40 billion counts, with collagen peptides, marine-sourced collagen peptides, hyaluronic acid, and the carotenoid acid xanthan, because these have all been shown to have individually beneficial skin effects. So they take it for 90 days. We do methods like high-resolution skin ultrasound to measure dermal thickness. And we get very large increase in dermal thickness because of dermal collagen. Ladies were thrilled because their crow's feet and some of the smile lines started to recede. Even some of the nasolabial fold and forehead wrinkles started to recede. But here's the thing. We also happen to measure waist circumference because it's free. It's easy. Tape measure, right? And to my great surprise, we had extraordinary reductions in waist circumference. On average, 3 inches, as much as 8.5 inches. Huge. No diet, nothing. But they didn't lose weight. So consistent with the animal evidence and consistent with what we're seeing in real life, increased muscle. Now, ladies will say, I don't want muscle. Yeah, you do want muscle. Because as you age, you lose about a third of your muscle. And if you made the mistake of losing weight, like on a GLP-1 agonist, or a calorie-reduced diet, or worse, bariatric procedure, you lost a huge amount of muscle. When you lose muscle by cutting calories, regardless of the method, you accelerated your path to falls, fractures, frailty, loss of independence, and early death by several years. Now, so here we stumble on a way, Mary, to maintain or restore youthful musculature. Personally, when I started doing this years ago, in my early 60s, this was like 5 years ago, I gained 13 pounds of muscle over 3 weeks. My strength increased by 50%. So I think what we stumbled on in a skin clinical trial, Mary, is a way to modify, to restore what I call shape and body composition, getting the exact opposite of, say, these GLP-1 agonist drugs, where you lose huge amounts of muscle that guarantees weight regain when you stop the drug, and it ensures earlier death. Mary, I think how profound. So we've stumbled on something that achieves the opposite. And you'll see that. You'll have smoother skin. You may say, you know what? I gained eight pounds. People get mad at me. They say, I gained 8 pounds on the Reuteri. I say, that's good. Did you look in the mirror? And they say, well, yeah, my waist is smaller. My shoulders are firmer. My thighs are firmer. My buttocks are firmer. Well, so we're restoring youthful musculature. This is a great thing. Restoration of youthful muscle is a huge health advantage long-term.
If you'd like to hear the entire interview with Dr. Davis, be sure to click on this video over here, and we'll see you over there in my Texas Hill Country kitchen. Love and God bless.